Gather round the fire, friends. I've got a wicked, creepy story to tell you about an unlikely serial killer, a young British woman named Joanna Dennehy. The story starts in a small English town called Peterborough in 2013. Nothing much happens there usually, it's pretty dull, but things are about to get real dark real fast. Our girl Joanna is 30 years old and she is bad news. I'm talking covered in scary prison tattoos, pathological liar, sex-crazed psycho. And she's just been let out of jail after pulling a stint for theft. The cops will later describe her crimes as just low-level stuff. If only they knew what she was about to do next. After getting out, Joanna rocks up to a place in Peterborough. It's like a dodgy rental agency for druggies and ex-cons on the fringes of society. Normal people usually steer clear of this place and its sketchy owner, a dude called Kevin Lee. But not our Joanna. She meets Kev and spins him this wild story about murdering her own dad and burning down houses and all kinds of crazy stuff. Was any of it true? Doubt it. The girl's nuts. But somehow it worked. Because next minute, Joanna and Kev are hooking up. This guy is old enough to be her dad too. But Kev clearly has a thing for bad girls. And that's not even the half of it with this chick. So Kevin sets Joanna up with a place to stay in Peterborough, right near his rental office. And they let another ex-con called Gary Stretch crash there too. Real piece of work, this Gary. Over 7 foot tall, like a walking skyscraper. But as big as he is, it's Joanna who rules the roost in this bad bunch. But as messy as Joanna's personal life is at this point, no one is expecting the killing spree she's about to go on. Over the next 2 weeks, Joanna will end 3 men's lives in brutal knife attacks. And she'll leave 2 more dudes barely clinging to life with her blade buried in their guts too. Joanna's first victim is a homeless guy called Lucas, who she tricks back to her place for dodgy paid services, if you know what I mean. Dude never makes it out. She stabs the life out of Lucas in her living room. He bleeds all over the carpet. A few days later, Joanna invites her landlord Kev round to her house for some fun times. When he doesn't come home that night, his poor wife is freaking out, badgering him with calls. But Kev isn't ever coming home again. Joanna killed him too, stabbing him to death in the bedroom. She isn't done yet though. Joanna drags another tenant of theirs, a sad old alcoholic called John Chapman, into the house next. Does him in the exact same way. Frenzy of stab wounds while John's probably too wasted to even fight back. The cops later work out that after butchering those 3 men in her house, Joanna feels indestructible. She dumps their bodies in the countryside ditches outside of town, posing them in all kinds of freaky, humiliating ways. Then, Joanna decides to take her horror show on the road. She grabs Giant Gary and they go pick up a petty criminal called Mark Lloyd. He's an old prison buddy of Gary's, but Mark has no idea what he's getting himself into with these 2 psychos. After robbing Mark's place, Joanna forces the terrified man into their car at knife point, and they head off on what you might call a murder road trip. Joanna's chatting about finding a stranger to kill just for fun. Mark is crapping himself in the back seat now for sure. First, they stop in the town of Hereford and spot this normal dude called Robin walking his dog. Joanna leaps out without warning and starts wildly stabbing Robin in the street in broad daylight. She then casually strolls back to the car like it's no biggie. Mark cannot believe what he just witnessed. But Joanna isn't satisfied yet. She makes Gary point out another random guy called John, and she does the exact same thing. Multiple frenzied stabs to the chest. After John collapses, Joanna even bends down to turn him over and keeps stabbing the poor guy in the front. Stone cold crazy. By now, there's chaos and sirens everywhere from people calling 911 after these brazen public attacks. Then a bunch of cop cars screech onto the scene, swoop in, and arrest Joanna and Gary right there. And the killing spree is finally over. So after getting arrested right there in the street, Joanna is dragged down to the police station, laughing and joking like it's all a big game. The cops are shocked by her attitude and total lack of remorse. When they dig into her background later, they realize Joanna is a full-blown psychopath. No empathy, no conscience, no control. The doctors even have a special name for how she gets off on extreme violence and humiliation. This chick is all kinds of disturbed. The evidence against Joanna is stacked sky high too. Her DNA is all over the victims and the crime scenes. When the trial rolls around, Joanna shocks everyone by just calmly pleading guilty to all of the charges. 3 murders and 2 attempted murders. She smirks and laughs the whole time in court. The judge is disgusted and throws the book at her, handing Joanna a whole life sentence. So, aged just 30, Joanna Dennehy becomes only the 3rd woman in British history to be jailed forever. And with her obsessive need for chaos and attention, prison is pretty much the perfect place. The psycho finds herself new pen pals to manipulate and flirt with. Meanwhile, the families of her victims try to rebuild their shattered lives after losing their loved ones. Her own parents wash their hands of Joanna completely. As they see it, the monster she became was never the little girl they raised. Joanna Dennehy proved that serial killers can come in all shapes and sizes. Even a 5'3" woman can leave a trail of bodies when her cruelty knows no bounds.